Chapter 7 F R LEAVIS by Chan-Woo Kim. This theory delves into the thought of a prominent British scholar F R LEAVIS, who proposes ideas in the realm of culture. The title of the theory is Mass Civilization and Minority Culture. F R LEAVIS is a renowned scholar for his outspoken views on popular media and entertainment in the 1930s. LEAVIS made academic impact with this form of literary criticism, which eventually evolved into cultural studies. LEAVIS primarily focused on canon of rich and rewarding texts that could be returned to as privileged objects. One noticeable feature is that the meaning of text changed. Originally, it meant a medium of something written, but later it meant an object or site of one's analysis. Accordingly, the tension of analysis changed as well. It focused on examining the formal internal features and contextual location. LEAVIS' aim as a culture academic was to defend culture against anarchy. As a matter of course, LEAVIS' aim in his journal was to undertake investigation of the contemporary world and engage with the movement of the modern civilization. In Mass Civilization and Minority Culture, F R LEAVIS says that culture belongs to the minority of society, and where the appreciation of art and literature depends, and the culture is only for a few who are capable of unprompted first-hand judgment. Cultural conservatism then is still kept with a few small minority who are capable of endorsing and appreciating such first-hand judgment by genuine personal response. To this minority of people is where culture lies within, and to this view LEAVIS agrees with what Matthew Arnold argued in his book Culture and Anarchy, which asserted that culture only belongs to the elite of people who appreciate all forms of beauty and art. In another part, LEAVIS stated that this minority, which preserve the best quality of culture, are capable not only of appreciating great figures in literature and art, such as Dante, Shakespeare, Donne, Hardy, etc., but recognizing the later successors constitute the consciousness of the race, or every branch of it at a given time. He adds on that for such capacity does not belong merely to an isolated aesthetic realm. It implies a responsiveness to theory as well as to art, to science and philosophy, insofar as these may affect the sense of the human situation and of the nature of life. Later on, LEAVIS warns that culture like crisis today, where all commonplace is more widely accepted and understood, and the realization of what the crisis portends does not seem to be common. He included a work of anthropology called Middletown. An example of Middletown, where there is in detail how the automobile, to take one instance, has in a few years radically affected religion, broken up the family, and revolutionized social custom, he adds, change has been so catastrophic that the generations find it hard to adjust themselves to each other, and parents are helpless to deal with their children. Which means that this example of Middletown refers to America and not to England, and that it's been recognized that such a rapid change has taken place in America in the last decades, and that its effects had been increased by the acceptance of its people. Yet LEAVIS warns that the same process is taking place in England too, and that the Western world and hemisphere generally is at an acceleration. With the example of Lord Northcliffe making the newspaper Daily Mail commonly seen in the third-class section of the train to being commonly witnessed on the first-class section, shows psychological gradation law in effect. Lord Northcliffe did not execute his decision of levelling down the quality of his newspaper out of contempt of the unintelligent many, but he had sympathy with the unintelligent many. Therefore, he appealed to them and increased circulation. By giving the public what it wants, Lord Northcliffe changed the national temperament. Grecian law states that bad money will drive good money out, so bad culture will drive out the good culture. However, in this theory, psychological gradation law can be applied. By presenting the concept of Americanization, Leavis later says the effect applies even more disastrously to the film, because it has so much power and potent influence on the mass, and that the films provide the main form of recreation in the civilized world in which they involve surrender, under conditions of hypnotic receptivity to the cheapest emotional appeals. Appeals are more insidious because they are associated with a compellingly vivid illusion of actual life. Leavis argues that the result may come as a serious damage to the standard of living. Not only films, but also he makes a comment on advertising. Specifically, Leavis focuses on the negative impact of advertising. Since the 1930s, advertising became more sophisticated. With the sophistication, Leavis observes the use of academic research in applied psychology. However, knowledge and skill used to develop advertising copy is to produce contemporary fiction that consists the majority of society, which Leavis deplores. Briefly, Leavis says if it is vain to resist the triumph of machinery, then it is equally vain to console us with the promise of a mass culture that shall be utterly new. It would no doubt be possible to argue that such a mass culture might be better than the culture we're losing. Yet, it would be futile. The utterly new surrenders everything that can interest us. Later on, he questions, sadly, what hope is there to offer? The vague hope that recovery must come. At the end, he advises that it is for us to be as aware as possible of what is happening, and if we can keep our communication open with the future. Leavis presents his ideology on culture, but culture can only be recognized and appreciated by a small group of people. It is referred as a minority. Leavis points out that the culture is at risk today, backing up his opinion with the example of Daily Mail and Middletown. He expands on his argument and crisis that England and European nations are exposed and drenched in the risk of Americanization, which can not only decrease diversity and public sphere, but also yield negative impact on film and advertising. Eventually, Leavis gives his narrative view on the future, whilst giving the hint that the communication should be open with the future. Applying F R LEAVIS idea to class materials. Here are the results. First application is framing. Framing is a term derived from the fact that the desk members at press use frame in order to highlight particular bits of an issue. Consequently, the mass public consumes the issue with the frame given by the desk members. Leavis frames how the culture can be genuinely appreciated and passed on to the next generation. To elaborate his ideas, he suggests that the idea of a small minority, he retracts from putting negative traits on a small minority in the limelight. On the other hand, he highlights positive qualities of the small minority. Later on, Leavis pinpoints his apprehension on culture by suggesting mass commercialization of culture and consequences that film and advertising yield. In short, Leavis frames the realm of culture in order to suggest that culture is a crisis today. In cooperation with priming, Leavis' ideas can also be considered. Priming is theory related to framing theory. For example, if media frames certain bits of a story, whether it is in positive or negative way, when asked a question about the agenda, the audience will have something pop up in one's head, whether it's negative or positive. Therefore, priming yields salience. Applying priming to Leavis, we can think of an example he gave on English culture using Americanization, pinpointing the fact that Americanization is not only a term related to America, but it can also be applied to England as well. Using terms such as McDonaldization, and colonialization. Leavis frames negative impacts mass production and consumption has on culture, eventually leading the audience to think about the consequence this could produce on culture. So when audience is primed with Leavis' ideology on culture, contemplation of negative impact of Americanization on culture can also be produced. In addition, Leavis' ideas can be considered in relation to social construction. Social constructionism is a theory of a knowledge in sociology and communication theory that examines the development of jointly constructed understandings of the world that form the basis for shared assumptions of a reality. The theory centers on the notion that meanings are developed in coordination with others, rather than separately within each individual. In terms of Leavis, we can think that the meaning and implication of film and literature changed. To begin with, the word or concept film may stand simply on the fact that film is a form of expression and entertainment that conveys a director's intention. However, when combined with Leavis' ideas, films become a medium that could yield negative impact larger than that of newspapers due to the fact that the number of human physical sense films stimulate outnumber that of newspapers. Thus, film is now categorized as a detrimental, artistic medium which can lead audience to a submissive mood transition. Lastly, two-step flow theory can be considered. The two-step flow of communication model says that most people form their opinions under the influence of opinion leaders, who in turn are influenced by the mass media. In contrast to the one-step flow of the hypodermic needle model or magic bullet theory, which holds that people are directly influenced by mass media. According to the two-step flow model, ideas flow from mass media to opinion leaders and from them to a wider population. Opinion leaders pass on their own interpretation of information in addition to the actual media content. In short, when issues occur, they are filtered by opinion leaders, then passed on to the general public. Leavis also defines that culture is passed on to the next generation due to the role of small minority. Small minority are elites of society who are capable of appreciating beauty of art and able to yield first-hand judgment. By appreciating all forms of art and able to discern era-defining artists, culture is inherited to the next generation, using language which Leavis believes is a crucial medium to deliver culture. As for conclusion, Leavis claims that culture has been in minorities' keeping, and the new emerging mass production and commercialism in culture mars diversity in public sphere. Leavis pinpoints a specific genre of media, which is film, that film can have damaging impact on society that is greater than TV. In the final part of his journal, Leavis discusses that mass culture may be better than we expected, but it is still futile. Now, there's no hope which can promise better future. However, Leavis hands out his advice that communication with the future should still be open. Incorporating Leavis' ideas with framing, priming, social construct, and two-step flow, this video voyaged and unraveled the academic realm of mass communication and culture in relation to Leavis. Thank you.